Two people, same age, same diet, same 8 hours of sleep. One of them still moves like they're 30. The other feels stiff getting out of a chair. Their grip feels weaker than it used to. They just feel old. Same lifestyle, completely different aging speed. Why? Think about that for a second. Same plate of food, same pillow, same hours logged under the covers, and yet one body is quietly holding on to its youth while the other is slipping, day by day, without any obvious cause. If diet and sleep were the whole story, they'd be aging in sync. They're not. Something else is running in the background, something neither of them can see, feel, or track on a scale. So what if the real difference has nothing to do with what's on their plate or how long they sleep? What if there's a separate control system inside the body, one that's either quietly working for you or quietly going silent, and almost nobody knows it exists? That's the real mystery here, and the answer is stranger and far more useful than anything you've been told to eat or avoid. Here's something most people never learn about their own body. Muscle isn't just rope and pulley, something that only matters when you're lifting a box or climbing stairs. Muscle behaves like a gland. Think about that word for a second. A gland is tissue that produces something and releases it into your body to change how other systems behave. Your thyroid does this. Your adrenal glands do this. And it turns out, so does the meat on your arms and legs. Every time you contract a muscle with any real effort, it doesn't just move a joint, it manufactures something and releases it. That single fact rewires how you should think about a set of squats or a heavy grocery bag. It's not exercise in the fitness sense. It's your body manufacturing a substance on demand. Here's where it gets specific. When a muscle is used against resistance, meaning it has to push or pull against real weight, not just glide through the air, it fires off a burst of chemical messengers directly into your bloodstream. Scientists call these myokines. One of the most studied is called irisin. You don't need to memorize the name. What matters is what it does the moment it's released. It doesn't sit in the muscle. It doesn't stay local. It goes straight into circulation, the same highway your hormones travel on, and it starts moving throughout your entire body within minutes. This is the part that explains why a few minutes of real effort can matter more than people assume. It's not about burning calories in that moment. It's about triggering a release. And once these messengers are in the bloodstream, they don't just float around aimlessly. They have destinations. Some of them travel to fat tissue and interact with fat cells directly, changing how those cells behave. Some cross into brain tissue and interact with neural cells. Others reach the immune system and interact with the cells responsible for defending your body and cleaning up cellular damage. In every one of these locations, the instruction is roughly the same. Slow down. Slow the pace of cellular aging happening here. It's a body-wide broadcast, not a local memo. One contraction in your thigh muscle can influence what's happening inside a fat cell nowhere near your leg, or a defense cell in your bloodstream, or communication happening inside your skull. That's the part that sounds almost too big for something as simple as standing up from a chair with effort, but that's exactly the mechanism. Now here's where the mismatch comes in, and it's the mismatch most people are quietly living inside of. Muscle tissue evolved across an enormous stretch of human history where sitting still for 8 or 10 hours a day simply wasn't an option. Bodies were built expecting frequent use, carrying, climbing, pushing, gripping all day long. Muscle never adapted a graceful way to handle long stretches of total stillness. So when you sit for hours, the myokine signal doesn't just pause politely and wait, it drops off, the broadcast goes quiet, and your body, quite literally, stops receiving that regular instruction to slow cellular aging in fat cells, brain tissue, and immune cells. That stiff, heavy feeling after a long stretch in a chair isn't just tight tendons. It's a signal fading out in real time, right as you feel it. The immune system is one of the first places this shows up in a way researchers can actually measure. Immune cells rely partly on that steady myokine input to maintain their own pace of aging. When muscles go quiet for extended periods, immune cells age faster than they otherwise would, since they're no longer receiving that regular slowdown instruction. This isn't about catching more colds necessarily. It's about the internal clock of your defense system ticking a little faster than it needs to, quietly, invisibly, with no obvious symptom you'd notice on a random Tuesday. The reach goes even further than that. Skin resilience and joint resilience are both tied to whether this signaling system is active. Mitochondria, the tiny structures inside almost every cell that generate usable energy, also respond to whether muscle is regularly signaling or sitting silent. With consistent disuse, mitochondrial density inside cells actually shrinks. Fewer of these energy engines are maintained because the body isn't receiving the signal that says they're needed. So skin that seems less resilient, joints that feel less forgiving, and a general sense of lower cellular energy can all trace back to this same quiet mechanism, not several separate unrelated problems. There's also a meaningful difference between a short quiet spell and a long one. Feeling stiff after sitting through a long meeting or a long flight is the acute version, the signal dipping for a few hours. Sarcopenia, the medical term for muscle mass loss that often begins sometime after 30, is the chronic version of the exact same mechanism, playing out over years instead of hours. The stiffness you feel today is a small temporary preview of the same pattern that, left unaddressed for long enough, becomes a much larger and slower shift in how your whole body ages. Here's the good news buried inside all of that. A signal that can go quiet is a signal that can also be switched back on. This isn't a one-way door. Muscle doesn't need hours in a gym to start releasing myokines again. It needs resistance. That's the specific trigger, not motion in general, not a walk around the block, but tension against something that pushes back. A muscle straining against real load, even briefly, is enough to fire that chemical release into your bloodstream again. The switch isn't complicated, it's just been sitting untouched, and the amount required is smaller than most people expect. A 60-second wall sit. One set of squats using nothing but body weight, carrying something heavy, groceries, a bag, a child, for about a minute. None of these are workouts in the traditional sense. There's no gym bag, no schedule, no recovery day required. Each one is simply enough tension, held for enough seconds, to tell your muscle tissue to do its job as a gland and release those messengers again. Think of it less like exercise and more like flipping a switch on a breaker box. You're not rebuilding the house. You're just restoring power to a circuit that went dark. If your grip already feels a little weaker than it used to, or getting out of a chair comes with an audible groan, that doesn't mean something has broken permanently. It means the signal has been quiet, not that it's gone for good. The body isn't punishing you for months of sitting. It's simply responding, moment to moment, to whether it's receiving instruction to release these messengers or not. That's oddly reassuring once you see it clearly. You're not chasing a repair. You're just restarting a conversation your muscles have been ready to have the entire time. Give this a week, one short burst of resistance daily, and pay attention to small, ordinary details, rather than expecting anything dramatic. Notice whether standing up from the couch feels slightly less like a production. Notice whether your grip on a jar lid or a steering wheel feels a touch steadier. These aren't guaranteed results, and they're not going to rewrite your biology overnight. But they're the kind of subtle, felt signals that hint the mechanism is active again, that your muscle tissue is back to sending its quiet instruction to your fat cells, your immune system, your brain, telling them all to ease off the pace of cellular aging just a little. Now think back to the two people from the very beginning. Same age, same plate of food, same 8 hours under the covers. For years, it probably looked like willpower, or genetics, or some vague notion of luck, but the real difference was never buried in their diet or their sleep schedule. It came down to something far more specific and far more ordinary. One of their muscle systems was actively sending a signal that day. The other one had gone quiet, not from any dramatic failure, just from stillness stacking up, day after day, without anyone noticing. That's the real answer to the question this video opened with. The gap in how old two same-age people look and feel isn't mystery, it's signal. Whether the muscle is speaking to the rest of the body today, or whether it's been sitting in silence long enough that the rest of the body stopped expecting to hear from it. And now that you know the switch exists, and you know exactly what flips it, the only real question left is whether you'll use it today. Not next Monday, not once you have a proper workout plan figured out. Today, 1 minute of real resistance, somewhere in your day, is the entire habit. Nothing more elaborate than that. That one small choice is the lever this whole video has been pointing toward the whole time.